Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner and operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events. And welcome to this special St. Patty's Day episode of the show. For this podcast, we like to sometimes celebrate holidays when there is a movie relevant to those holidays. And for St. Patty's Day, we all know that there's nothing better than to sit down and watch a movie about a killer leprechaun. Uh, but unfortunately, we've already done an episode on Leprechaun, the original one. So you're in store for a podcast on Leprechaun 3. And to talk about Leprechaun 3 today with me on this glorious St. Patty's Day is Dave Watkins. Thank you for joining us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. And this one should be subtitled Leprechaun 3 in Vegas.
Yes.
In Las Vegas. But then you're just going to call it Leprechaun 3. That's it. But I think for most people, if you're trying to figure out which one it is, it's the one that takes place in Vegas. That's what's unique about this particular one.
Yes, the infamous Leprechaun series. And if you've been following us, you know that for this St. Patty's Day, we're releasing episodes for Leprechaun 2 and 3, but you are listening to Leprechaun 3's podcast right now. If you want to listen to the second one, you'll have to go back and go find that one. But for now, we're going to start our kind of take on everything we love, loathe, and just plain are confused about Leprechaun 3. And there is a lot. So
it confuses you. Well, I'll bring some insight to it. It all makes sense.
It's confusing because anyone who actually has bothered to follow this franchise will know that the rules for the Leprechaun change in every film. And it's just so funny that in this film, the characters get a lot of their information from a CD-ROM.
It's hilarious. Like that is like so damn funny. So it's in a pawn shop, and some guy comes in with this big leprechaun statue to begin with, and he's missing an arm and a leg, and he's got an eye patch. Apparently the leprechaun's been messing him up, is what it seems like. But he drops off this statue. So at the end of the second one, which has nothing to do with this one, that leprechaun is blown up. And so, but he's a different. That's what we're talking about on the other one. He must be a different leprechaun, but also played by Warwick Davis, which Warwick Davis does a terrific job. But so eventually, the pawn shop owner gets bitten by the leprechaun. He has a medallion around the statue, and once he takes the medallion off, the leprechaun comes to life and attacks him. And after that, he goes and gets the CD-ROM that he just happens to have in his drawer.
He happens to
tells him all the rules of this particular leprechaun, because the other movies had different rules. But luckily, he has the right CD-ROM that has the rules for this film.
Yes.
Which I do have the rules written down. I'll go over them in a minute.
All right, give me a second before you go over the rules, because essentially this movie takes place in exactly 2 locations. The casino, which is the Lucky Shamrock Casino, and
it's a great name for the casino for this movie.
And this pawn shop. So throughout the whole movie, there's just these 2 locations, and the characters keep going back and forth.
Yeah. Now there's a little bit of like there's a car exterior scene earlier on. Is that all? I mean, really though, the thing about a Vegas hotel, even though it's one location, it's like there's a lot of rooms in it. So you see like hotel rooms, and you see like different rooms. So it's kind of cool, and you get to see some Vegas exterior stuff too. You ready for these rules?
Yes. Tell us the rules.
So these are very important for this film. So the first thing it says, it's like, and it's all like when it's like CD-ROM, and he puts it in. If anyone's familiar with like Windows 95, like that's kind of what it looks like. And it says that he comes up and it's like a leprechaun. He's like, magical elves have become obsessed with gold. And that's what leprechauns are. They're magical elves. They have become obsessed with gold. And he says the power is tied to the gold, which will use, and it will use all of its magic to protect it. And this is really important when potatoes are his favorite meal. But all this plays into the plot. So, and then wishes, if a mortal gets hold of the leprechaun's gold, they are given 1 wish. And the last one, which this seems a little random, but it does come into play. The leprechauns are very territorial and can't tolerate another leprechaun crossing into his boundaries.
Now, all these rules do apply for this film, and I guess this was the means to make the audience aware of what's going to eventually come and to make it make sense. Because without these rules, a lot of the film doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, one thing about one of the CD-ROMs playing, this shop owner lives a lot longer in this film than you'd expect him to live. He's actually fights him pretty good for a while, but while he's fighting him and going in different parts of the pawn shop and getting different weapons, it keeps cutting back to the computer. So it's not like all at one time, like an information dump. It shows a little bit more stuff and then another rule. And then later on, the main character comes in there and he actually sees the recap of the CD-ROM. It's like, just to recap, here are the rules again. It's like,
Yes. So it's Scott and Tammy are our main young stars of this film, and Scott is like a greenie to the world of Las Vegas, and he just gets enamored with the everything he sees there, and he gets a little bit greedy with what he can win and what he can't, but he doesn't have a way into the casinos yet. And Tammy is someone who works at this Lucky Shamrock Casino. And fortunately for almost forgot his name, Scott, Tammy's car dies on her, and he knows a lot about cars, but more importantly, he becomes her ride to work. And so that's kind of the way these two characters who have never met each other, don't know each other, kind of collide at the start of the story, before Scott then is integrated and invited into the world of the casino, and then his eyes light up when he sees people winning money.
A couple of things just about that first interaction at the car. It's like the first time you see Scott, he gets out of the car and he walks up to Tammy, and for some reason his mouth's like dropped wide open. I don't know what's up with that. I mean, maybe I don't know if he's I don't know. I mean, she's not like later on she's dressed in some kind of like kind of skimpy clothing. And here she's just dressed in regular clothes, and she doesn't. I mean, she's cute, but she's not like a drop dead gorgeous like when he's never seen a girl before. I don't know. I don't know what that drop mouth thing was about.
I noticed that too. This I was like, she just seems to be a normal girl who has a car problem, buddy.
Yeah.
You seem like such a naive character when you get to Vegas, that you get distracted by all the glittering and neon lights. You almost run her over in her car.
Right. But really, but other than that, I actually do like the performance by these two actors, and they kind of like when they're in the car and they're driving there. I do like their back and forth dialogue. I thought it was they're both pretty
natural.
They're both very likable, and they play off of each other pretty good during the scenes they're in together.
Yeah, you don't have that odd scene like in the second movie where the girlfriend gets jilted and then goes and plays games with the other character who's not her boyfriend. It's like, whoa, this seems like a weird scene to have in here. I thought these two characters were in love and been together forever, and then you have this weird scene in there. But this
one, she gets possessed and starts to like make out with her boss, an older guy, and like they're kind of like about to have sex, and she takes off her clothes. But other than that, it's not really that weird.
Oh my god! So, as these films are want to do, this is the odd film out of all the Leprechaun films, is that they spend a lot of time setting up the cast of characters. Now, there's a lot of characters in here. There's a musician. What the heck is a musician?
Yeah, Fazio. Yeah. That guy's pretty awesome, really.
There's Fazio the magician who has a show there, and then there is a co-worker,
Loretta,
played by Caroline Williams. If you've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, you know who I'm talking about. Who is this, I guess, over the hill woman who's her looks have a little sagged, a little over the edge, and she's not as beautiful as she wish she had been. She's
wearing like some ridiculous looking wig, and
yeah, it's so funny.
Did that come? But all of that's because like later on when she makes her wish to look sexy so she could look different, you know?
Exactly. And then of course there's these loan sharks who Mitch, who is the owner of the casino, there's a loan shark and his bodyguard who really is not a very good bodyguard who play into the plot that Mitch owes them money. And of course, Mitch has his own thing with all the characters because he's the owner of the casino, and he, you know, the thing is he wants everyone to be in on the scam because Loretta, who is at the roulette table, is on the scam to cheat people out of the money.
That's what they do in Vegas. I think that's how it really goes down.
And then of course, Mitch owns a casino, yet he still owes money to a loan shark who is about to beat him up. It's so
yeah, there's something really weird about that whole dynamic because these two guys are going to beat him up or want money from him, but at the same time, they seem to be working at the casino too.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know. I don't know if he actually owns it or if he's just like the manager or runs it, but but they're working there because they come up to Scott when he's at the table and they say stuff to him like you know or no, not Scott, they come up to the Leprechaun when the Leprechaun's at the table and they interact with him like they work there. So I don't know what's going on exactly with those guys.
I wasn't sure either. I thought that was an odd scene when I rewatched it. Before this time I wouldn't have given it any thought at all. But when I was rewatching it for the show, I was like, this is odd to have this interaction. But I guess they probably just needed more scenes with those two characters. So
yeah, I think it's an odd dynamic. They're kind of funny at the same time. They're kind of push it a little too hard to be funny with these two characters, which is weird because you want to give the Leprechaun the comedy, and then you got these two goons playing Laurel and Hardy or something, you know, or trying to be. But they are kind of funny, but I think they push it too far in some parts of it with those two characters.
You know what? I agree with you because for me, they reminded me of the two bumbling cops in Halloween 5. Like when you watch Halloween 5, the bumbling cops come up and they have their own music.
Yeah.
Why are these characters in this movie? They're the dumbest characters. Yeah. I saw those two characters in this movie were like, why are they in this movie?
Well, they're in there to get killed, you know, because you want to have some extra people to get killed, but when they do get killed, it's actually not that effective.
Well, I wasn't even sure if they actually died. The Leprechaun knocks the main guy out. He's like, he doesn't really kill him. It knocks him.
Right. Oh, he takes out the one guy's eye, and then he just keeps beating him with a shoehorn, like both of them.
Shoehorn, thank you.
Yeah, you don't actually see them die on screen, so they could still be alive. And the guy at the beginning who had an eye patch, he clearly took his eye out, and he was still alive. So they were probably still alive. You just don't see them again after that.
You don't see them again. They're dispatched and done for.
But you think if they're going to kill them, or have them around to be killed, you might as well kill them. But it's unclear whether they died. It really doesn't matter because they don't ever come back into play again. You know.
And there's plenty of other on-screen deaths that we do see. So.
I guess we should talk about the Leprechaun in this one a little bit and how that comes to be with his we talked about the rules, but how with his gold, like the second one, it's one piece of gold that ends up being a problem.
Just one piece, not a whole bunch of pieces fall. It's just the one piece.
Right. And he's able to tell this one quicker that it's gone. He doesn't have to count the gold. I don't think he just can tell it. It almost like it has a tracker on it, but he can't really track it to a specific person. It's kind of like follow the gold piece. He loses one, and different people keep getting the piece of gold, and then they make a wish, and then the wish backfires. Excuse me, my voice is going out. But then the wish backfires, and then they get killed or whatever, and then it goes to somebody else.
Well, I don't know if the wishes backfire. This is a weird one because they make a wish, but it's only relevant until they lose the coin, which I thought was dumb. I thought that was a dumb plot point. I was like, well, why would anyone make a wish that if you lose, you can only make one wish, and then once you lose the coin, the wish is irrelevant. Like no one keeps their wish after they lose the coin. They all lose it.
Right, and somebody comes.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the oddest part for me with that whole wishing thing is the magician who wants to be the greatest magician, but he can't magic himself out of being captured by the freaking leprechaun. I'm
Yeah,
he still
yeah.
has the coin, and he could just, I magic myself out. No, he can't do that.
But doesn't he lose the coin though?
He eventually loses the coin when the chainsaw shows up, and then he drops the coin.
Yeah,
But
that's what he gets.
it's
Hey,
so
can I, yeah. Yeah, you mind if I go grab some water?
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, give me 1 sec. I'll be right back. Oh,
But uh, talking about the leprechaun and everything like that, there's some of the strangest things that happen in this film. Plot wise, it kind of goes back and forth between the pawn shop and the actual, what do you call it, the casino. And Scott is, once Tammy lets him into the casino, he becomes gold, gold. Not so much gold, but money, money, money. He takes all this money that he has, which is about $23,000, and he bets it on the table, a single table that Loretta's at, knowing that we all know as the audience that Loretta is underhandedly taking all his money. And then, of course, he loses all his money on the roulette table, and then he has to go get more money. And Loretta tells him that he should take his watch, his father's watch, across the street to the pawn shop and tell him Loretta sent you there, because that's exactly, probably another thing that Loretta does is she has a secondhand deal with the Gumta, the pawn shop owner, to get money whenever she refers people over there. So
yeah. There seems to be a lot of scamming going on in
there's a lot of
general with all
scamming.
the characters, which is quite hilarious in a lot of the scenes. Even when my favorite sequence of the film is at the end when they go into the hospital, and even the doctors are scamming too.
Yeah, they're scamming, and then of course you see Warwick Davis is the leprechaun dressed as a doctor, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh yeah, he walks in. He's dressed up like a nurse, and he doesn't have like a pink like nurse thing on.
I thought he was dressed as a doctor, but I wasn't paying.
But even like they all wear pink. Even like the male nurses wear pink. I think maybe like even the doctors wear pink for some reason at that particular hospital. I'm not sure why, but
it's hilarious because
yeah,
it's a short one.
yeah. But that yeah, that whole hospital scene is, that's freaking hilarious. And it kind of that's another location that we forgot about when we're talking about locations. But that is a lot of it takes place there, and it's kind of it's weird that they go to the hospital and they spend so much time there, but it's actually like, to me, those are some of the more inspired scenes of the film. Like that's something we hadn't talked about. I don't the main character getting bit by the leprechaun and getting the leprechaun's blood in him apparently, and he starts to become a leprechaun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had gotten to the part where I was telling them that Scott goes over to the pawn shop, and he finds Gumta dead on the floor, but he also finds the gold coin. And instead of pawning his watch, he decides to wish that he was back at the casino on the winning streak. And all of a sudden, he's poofed back over to the casino, and he starts on this amazing winning streak to get all of his money back. And then some, because we find out that he's won over $100,000. I think Loretta is the one who reveals that he's won over $100,000 to Fazio at the table. But he's back on top, and they give him the hotel wants to try and get him to come back and lose his money on another table. But they give him a room. He goes up to the room, and of course this starts the craziness with the coin flip flopping between all the characters throughout the entire movie. Because Fazio breaks in after learning all the information from Loretta. He breaks in trying to steal the money, but ends up only getting the coin. So Scott loses the coin, but the leprechaun then comes in, and that's where, of course, we get to where they have a tussle, and Scott gets bitten, and he stabs the leprechaun in the forehead, and that blood oozes over the wound. And then we come to one of the rules that we were discussing at the earlier topic show.
Yeah, he can't tolerate another leprechaun, but it's kind of a cool And I like the way that the actor does this when he starts to turn into a leprechaun. He does a very good Irish accent, and it's pretty hilarious, really. And at first it's like kind of a little off-putting, but then the more he starts to look like a leprechaun, the more the better it is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, uh, one, when he starts to really get into the leprechaun, Scott starts really developing his leprechaun abilities. The scene where he's back down at the restaurant in the casino, having the myriad of potato meals all together, because as one of the rules, they love the potatoes.
Yeah.
Uh, there's no reason for that rule to even
Yeah.
exist. It's just a funny little. It's kind of like the first movie where if you throw the freaking shoes at the leprechaun, he has to stop to shine them. It's one of those rules that just seems really stupid but funny at the same time.
Right, right. And it is like it is funny when he's eating all those potatoes too, because yeah. But it's like I think the thing's cool though about the film, even though it's interesting because the coin goes from one person to the next, and when the leprechaun catches up with the person, he could let him go. But most of the time, he really tortures them, or he seems overly cruel and really obsessed with the vengeance. Sometimes instead of getting the coin, which he could do, he decides to stay around just to kill the person. The
Mm-hmm.
and what's interesting was like that the Mitch character who owns the casino, his wish is that he wants to be because he can't quite get Tammy. They, I don't know if he mentioned this before, but Tammy's also the magician's assistant. That's her job at the casino, but he's got a kind of a crush on her, and she's kind of not like she's not liking his advances, and she's kind of a strong. She is a strong woman character in a way because she's like basically saying, You're old and you're gross. I don't, even though you're rich, I don't want to be involved with you." And but he wishes that she was, and then she all of a sudden is, and the way the actress does that, it's like really goofy what she does with that, but it kind of works. But it's just really like she acts completely different. I don't know what even's going on there with that exactly.
Yeah, you can't tell if that's how the wish is Mitch's interpretation of a woman that he wants, or it's part of her Tammy's like, oh, this is how she really would act to someone like Scott if they were really involved. Like,
Right? Yeah, because
he
she like beats
slaps
him up
Mitch
on the elevator.
around.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a very odd thing, Mitch just wants to get with Tammy, but he's not really expecting all these different things about her when he does get her.
yeah, yeah. And then, like, eventually, unfortunately, right when she's about to take her top off, like, the coin gets stolen by Loretta, and then she snaps back in, and she like kicks Mitch in the nuts, which then he fires her after that. It's like,
Yeah, which is this is the start of this whole like I said, this is the weirdest thing about the film, but it's also the thing that pushes the plot forward, is that the coin just flip flops between the characters back and forth, back and forth. This isn't the first time that Loretta gets the coin, but this is the time where she's realized the magic behind the coin, and so she steals it back from Mitch. Now she realizes what it can do.
yeah. And then when he kills her, it's like a Botox thing. Like he makes her lips get really big, and then her ass get really big, and it just starts growing. It looks it's like some body horror stuff going on, which is eventually I think she eventually explodes from it. Yeah.
Yeah, she explodes. She gets herself stuck in between the door, but she's still expanding so much that
Right.
she explodes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's and it's actually kind of fun when this stuff starts happening in this film, and it doesn't start to happen pretty far into it, but when that stuff starts happening, it's pretty fun. Some of the special effects and the way that he's killing some of the people.
Well, I think that's also because this movie spent so much time setting up all these different characters. It's rare for a film, and especially one of these Leprechaun films, because you're not expecting something like a black slasher film. Every 10 minutes, someone's going to die, but that's not really what happens. Gupta, the pawn shop owner, doesn't die really fast. We have several scenes with him before he
Yeah.
actually dies, and then we have most of the movie before all the other characters die. But when they do die, it's very fast. There's very fast succession between one and the next. So
when he kills Mitch, something really crazy happens with that because he all of a sudden the leprechaun starts appearing on TV, and there's like a woman on TV, and then she comes out of the TV and she starts getting in the bed with Mitch, and she's on top of him while the leprechaun's on TV playing different characters talking, and eventually he comes out into the room, and then Mitch looks up, and instead of the woman being there, some kind of robot with a human face, and then it like electrocutes him. So
yeah,
that's a that's kind of a cool sequence. It's pretty messed up, but it's like I don't know. But I guess the question is like the Leprechaun's obviously doing. He's got like a lot of powers. He could do some crazy stuff. I think a lot of it might be in people's heads because I don't. Obviously, clearly the woman wasn't there, but was the robot version that electrocutes him had to have been there because it kills him, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, the robot. Yeah, because remember, you know what? I can't remember if when um Scott and Tammy break in, if
It's
the
no,
robot's
it's
there.
not there anymore.
Yeah,
It's
okay, it's not there.
yeah,
So,
no, maybe it wasn't ever there. I guess these things are there, but since it's magical, it can kind of disappear or
yeah, they can
reappear.
listen to.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. But of course, that's the thing about these characters. Because these characters, once they hook up again, Scott and Tammy, they're kind of like inseparable for most of the rest of the film. After he saves her from Mitch, so after Mitch first fires Tammy, Tammy then leaves, and then of course she's crying. She's got fired. He tried to molest her, and then she comes up with Scott again, who then wants to help her, and then by that time they're no longer separable for most of the movie. You know,
yeah.
um,
She kind of changes because before that she kind of was couldn't care that much about it. She seemed like she liked him okay, but it was just kind of like he's underage and she's over. He was too young to get into the casino, and she's a little bit older than him, but she was kind of like okay, kid, sort of thing. But that from there, she seems to really like him from then until the end because he's going to take up for her.
yeah. I think you're 100% right about that. I think because he takes up for her, that's what bonds the two from then on. Other than that, she's looking at him as a naive kid who's in a casino, and he brings all of his money there when she told him not to come in and gamble. So, but
Yeah,
that's what pushes the rest of the film, because what happens is the coin, like it continues to do, goes from one place to the next, and it goes to Loretta, who then the leprechaun has his way with her until she explodes.
yeah.
Still hilarious. And then I'm trying to, and she loses it to
I think
Fazio.
Fazio, which now the scene with Fazio, that's pretty horrific stuff. That when he saws him in half in front of the audience and then opens it up and that's pretty gruesome. Really, it's kind of a cool scene.
Yeah, and you need those few scenes because some of the other scenes, like I said, the loan shark, who I can't remember his name, and his bodyguard, you don't really see them die horrifically.
But
But
even
they
yeah,
also
even like
do because
yeah,
they never get the coin; they just happen
right.
to be there.
When he kills the pawn shop owner, it's pretty weak though. I mean, the guy's like fights him for a long time, and when he finally gets him, he all he does is he strangles him with a phone cord, and that's what kills him. So you would
That's right.
think something cooler would have happened with that, but
Yeah, you're
th-
right. Hmm.
I don't know. But he does at one point. There's like a Cupid statue, and he moves it. He can levitate things. He moves the Cupid statue and makes it shoot an arrow into the guy's arm, which was just kind of a cool little beat there. It's always interesting when you see the Leprechaun using new powers. I guess, but same time, it's like new powers, but it's like or the script writers just like just coming off of whatever, even though if it doesn't make any sense compared to what's already been established, or like they might have an idea, um, shoot him with an arrow or something.
I don't think the writers were thinking that hard in terms of the leprechaun's power. They kind of said he has lots of powers and he can kind of do whatever he wants, and it all will fall into place. We just need to set up these general rules that are going to play out in the film.
I got I wrote down one of the Leprechaun's quotes here. At one point, one of the I think the main character tries to use the coin against him, like he
Mhm.
wishes against the Leprechaun, and the Leprechaun does this rhyme. He's like, don't you remember the charm a leprechaun's gold can do him no harm? for pulling this trick, I'll chop off your dick. And then he takes like an axe and tries to chop him, you know. But that's funny how that was one of the few ones that he rhymed, that the Leprechaun rhymes, that I was actually kind of laughed about it because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, well, so now you bring up our other big role, which is the fact that you have Scott slowly turning into a leprechaun based on his infectious bite, and of course the leprechaun, and now their paths have crossed, and as two leprechauns, they don't really like being in the same territory. uh,
Yeah.
which leads to some funny moments between the two because obviously Scott's getting some powers by leprechaun powers, which is just funny seeing him use some of his powers against another leprechaun.
Right, yeah, and he uses it in some of the other scenes too. He tends to do with, like, especially in the doctor scene, like the doctors are going to try to do some operation on him, and then he gets up and he kisses the main nurse, and which makes her pass out, and then he is able to levitate, like lift up a gas mask and put it onto the doctor's face, and then the doctor he has a syringe in his hand, and he accidentally injects it into the male nurse in the room, and then they're all passed out after that, which is
Yeah, so
that's a
yeah,
really hilarious sequence, really.
well, yeah, because he doesn't kill him.
Right, right, yeah, he does. He, like, unlike the other leprechaun, he doesn't want to kill anybody, but just wants them out of the way so he can go fight and save Tammy.
Oh my god. So then we get to the fact that I'm trying to remember why they end up back at the pawn shop.
Well, they go. I think they only go to the pawn shop once. I mean, they bet he goes there. Do they go back there again?
They go back to the
Yeah,
pawn
no,
shop.
they do
Tammy
go
gets
have to
the
go back.
medallion.
Yeah, because he says he has to go back there to get something, I
Oh,
guess. Yeah.
because he smells the leprechaun's gold, and the leprechaun's gold is in the safe in the
Oh yeah.
pawn shop. That's
Right,
where the
right. Yeah,
leprechaun's been
yeah.
hiding the gold. I have to remember plot wise, it keeps going back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
I have to
Some
remember
very
that.
very well plotted things going on here, you know.
Yeah, but that's the reasoning why they go back to the pawn shop. But they also need to set up the fact that the medallion is something that the leprechaun is like a leprechaun repellent. So of course,
Well,
it
this
takes a few
yeah.
moments for Tammy to realize that that's what the medallion's power is.
I think yeah, medallion's set up pretty good, but like they don't use it
They
as
don't.
much because it's like, what I mean, if I had that medallion, that thing would never leave my hand. With what you know, it seems like there's different, like she's got her like in that hospital and she's got it hiding it behind her back when he has her strapped to a gurney. I mean, I would never would have let me strap, or would never would have let him strap me to a gurney to begin with if I had a medallion in my hand, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't. None of the other characters realize that if you put the damn medallion on the leprechaun, you might turn them back into a freaking statue.
Right, yeah, yeah. That's how I kind of expected the film to end. That would have been probably better than what they ended up doing. But I guess it kind of would have been a little anticlimactic because I guess they find that, and that's one of the rules from the computer that it says the power's in the gold. So they like we have to destroy the gold, but how do you destroy gold exactly? I mean, they do it pretty easily in the film, but if you think about it, if you melt gold, it's just going to melt. It's still going to be gold, you know?
Yes, I know. I thought about the same thing. I was like, oh yeah, that was the plot of this one. So our magician, Fazio,
Fazio, yeah.
his big trick is to use fire in his show. And then after, of course, he dies by getting cut in half with a chainsaw. Uh, Scott ends up picking up this flamethrower, which I think is hilarious but fun to watch nevertheless. And of course, he wants to kill the leprechaun with it first, but then I think it's Tammy that realizes you have to destroy the gold.
She's like, I saw the CD-ROM video.
Oh, Jesus! And so he puts the the flamethrower on the gold for like 2 seconds, and the gold disappears.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I don't think gold's gonna get destroyed that fast, but okay, I'm gonna go with it because it's a movie.
I kind of feel like they're like, here we are. We're almost to an hour and a half. We got to end this thing. It's
Oh my god, it does feel like that though. It does.
yeah,
It feels like they needed to come up with an ending, and so we're just gonna pick up this flamethrower and put it on the gold, and that's going to be the end of the Leprechaun for this movie.
Yeah,
You kind of do wonder, what the notes were for the first draft of the script versus the shooting script, because that just seems very anticlimactic to me. Like you say, the medallion could have been a much more interesting way to deal
I
with
mean,
Leprechaun.
you put him back in a statue form, and then the last scene he's like in a museum or something, you know. So it's yeah,
In a museum, or they drop him down in the freaking a deep bottomless water pit like in Creep Show with the
right, yeah,
great
yeah.
and then you never see him again.
Well, that medallion might come off though if he was in water. You'd want to put him somewhere because where it couldn't come off of him.
Well, that's the funny thing that starts the whole movie. The freaking Lucky, the guy who brings it to the pawn shop says, "Don't take it off, don't take it off." But he only takes $40 for the statue
Yeah,
for gas.
yeah.
It's one of those weird things in the movie that you can't think too hardly about because the movie is kind of ridiculous to begin with.
But the movie is I think it's a lot of fun though, really. Even though if it is like you're saying, it is ridiculous. If you're, it might hurt your brain if you try to make sense out of it. But if you kind of just go with what's happening, it's pretty fun. And I do like some of the performances. I do like the way that when Scott starts becoming a leprechaun. I like the way that he acts. And of course, I even like the actress playing Tammy. I thought she was great, except for when
Well,
she's
yeah, I'm a fan of Caroline Williams, but I think Fazio has the most fun. The actor who plays Fazio.
oh yeah. He was really good too. I mean, yeah, I really like his just the way he's acting like the magician, and
Yeah,
he's a younger guy. You would expect the magician to be an older guy, but I guess he looks more like the Siegfried and Roy type of magicians from Las Vegas.
almost definitely.
Yeah, so that's kind of what they were going for, and he acts all like he acts a little over the top on purpose, which is hilarious.
Yes, but there's a far cry from his first performance where he's doing the little dance backwards and nobody in the audience is paying any attention whatsoever to his performance. And of course, it doesn't go right.
Right? Yeah.
Versus his performance where he's the greatest magician ever with his flamethrower act already and waiting to go until, of course, the leprechaun shows up. He's more
Yeah.
confident. There's people in the audience. It's a much different atmosphere. But the actor does a really good job with both different versions of the show.
Yeah. I like even the first one's pretty funny. When he's talking they're on the stage and she's supposed to come out of one of the boxes, but then the door gets stuck, and then she comes out and they're just kind of whispering back and forth on the stage about it. It's pretty funny sequence.
Yeah.
Really, I think the actors do in general. That most of them do a pretty good job of what they're doing here, and they seem to be having fun. And the script is fun, really. Like if you think about what's happening, and they kind of do get a pretty decent flavor of Vegas in there. They had some B-roll of Vegas. They even have a scene with Elvis and the Leprechaun
Oh,
out in the
yes.
strip. Yeah,
I love that scene. I
yeah,
had forgotten that scene was in the movie where the leprechaun Warwick Davis comes up to Elvis impersonator, and he tries to
yeah.
impersonate Elvis himself. Jeez.
Right, yeah. That's and and like just Vegas kind of lends itself to the greed that's a lot of the themes of the Leprechaun movies. It's almost always the main theme of the films.
Yes, but then again, at the very end of this film, Tammy has the coin, and she says she has everything she needs right there with Mr. Scott. And when she does, she tosses that coin away. You know.
Yeah, and that was extremely cheesy, by the way.
Of course it is. It was cheesy in the second movie. It's cheesy in the third movie.
But but it's like I mean, they don't do the kiss in this one like they do in the second one. But then after that, he kind of does like the actor felt real comfortable doing this. They had like that line from Casablanca. He's like, "Oh, this looks like the beginning of a beautiful like friendship or something like that," and you could tell the actor like whoever someone just threw that line at him, and they're like, "Say that like Humphrey Bogart," you know.
They threw it on the set trying to improv that scene. Oh, I know this great line we can add in there. Just say it. The actors like, what?
Yeah, I never seen that movie. What Casablanca? What is it now? They just say the line like, "Hey, sweetheart," you know.
Oh
It's the
my
beginning of a
god.
beautiful relationship or friendship. And
Uh,
that last scene actually seems a little tacked on. It almost and it's weird because she doesn't bring the medallion with her. She only has the coin, and she doesn't have her like her she had like most of the movie she's got this kind of leotard thing on like but she has a coat that she wears over
yeah.
it that she leaves like why would she leave that and walk outside wearing this skimpy outfit when she seems most of the other time when she's not doing a show she puts the coat on, you
Uh-huh.
know. But it almost seems like something happened with that scene, whether it was shot outside of continuity at the beginning before they shot the other stuff or it was added later and they and they had to kind of they're like, we don't have an end scene. We're going to need something here for that. It just seems it doesn't seem to work that good
Mm.
to me anyway.
Well, I don't have my figures in front of me to look at the dates between the third and fourth movie.
It's a year. So this came out in 1995. The other one came out in 1994.
Now part four.
Oh, part four?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because I remember the first three being like one after the other, but I can't remember when the fourth one ever came out. Or it because, like I said, when they did part two, they were already working on part three, but I don't know if that was the same with part four because part four's script, if I'm not mistaken, was a different film that they incorporated as a Leprechaun movie.
Yeah, I think you're right about that because that one seemed like an alien ripoff, and it was just like we have an alien script. So part four was 1996, so it was the next year. They popped that thing out pretty quick.
Okay.
They really did it with all of them though, because all three of them they just knocked them
Geez.
out. It kind of shows a little bit too, but at least they were doing something. What one thing I don't think we mentioned, production wise, this was directed by Brian Trechard Smith, and
Mhm.
he directed Night of the Demons 2, which is probably the best Night of the Demons film, like the most polished. The first one's probably the better one, but that one's the most polished one out of them. And then Dead End Drive-In, and of course Leprechaun 4.
Yeah, I still have to see Dead End Driving. I still have not seen that. It's been on my list for years.
Yeah, they got I've got an Arrow Video Blu-ray. I also got a new 4K release of it from Umbrella Entertainment, the Australian company. But I got the 4K. I haven't watched the 4K yet, but it's a pretty good movie. It's
Yeah.
a kind of dystopian future type of movie.
Yeah, I recently read about it in one of my books, and I was like, "Really? Is that what that movie is? Oh, I want to
Yeah,
see that now." It just seemed like a cheesy
yeah,
horror movie, so I was like, "I don't want to see that," and I never did.
right. It's pretty good. And that I hadn't watched, like I said, that 4K version has an uncut version, so it probably has some cooler scenes that weren't in the other one that may have been cut for. But it is slightly horror, but it's more like science fiction, I guess, or even thriller. But it's about basically these youths getting kind of imprisoned inside of a movie theater, and they're like they just want them out of society, so the kind of degenerates or people who are causing a lot of trouble, and that's kind of their prison. But it seems like a pretty cool prison. They don't seem to mind it, most of them. They're kind of living. It's kind of a punk sort of, like punk sort of, there's some punks in there and stuff, but it's fun. It's a fun movie though. The main character wants to get out. He gets in there by mistake and he doesn't like it in there. Some other people will adapt to it pretty good. It's kind of like the Escape from New York. See, if you think about the people who were trapped in New York, kind of how they kind of make their own society. It's very kind of like a mini Escape from New York inside of a movie theater. Like it's like a drive-in movie theater.
Yeah, it's on my list. And the thing is, I don't think he does much any work now, but his filmography is with a lot of lower budget films like this. I was trying to remember the special effects artist for this film, and I can't remember him. But he did a lot of low budget horror movies that he's known for.
Right.
I wish I could remember Barlow's. I can't remember anymore. I used to know all this stuff back in the day. But the thing is, up until the third Leprechaun movie, they were probably spending a little more money than they probably wanted to, but they were successful on DVD or VHS. I can't remember if this was still the VHS DVD boom or not. So,
Yeah, with the third one, it actually had a like a decent budget. It was very similar to the second one. They just produced it direct to DVD or VHS, but the budget was big enough that they felt fairly confident they were going to make money on the VH or DVD sales or
Yeah.
probably Blockbuster Video or Hollywood Video, whatever.
Both of
So
them.
yeah, that's crazy how much they had to pay for those movies too when they had to buy the ones that they rented. I don't remember. Someone told me one time how much they were. I don't remember, but I think they're probably like $100 or more
Yeah.
per video, and then they would rent them for $4 or $5 or whatever at a time. So
Yeah, that's how much they were back in the day, dude.
yeah,
Until they started realizing that studios could sell them straight for a much lower price to regular consumers. But then you only saw like the popular movies on VHS first, and then
yeah.
you're seeing all the other ones. And then, of course, video stores started reselling old movies, and that's how you got the whole craze. I know I used to buy all these damn old movies,
Yeah, I
and
did too.
you
Yeah.
know,
But yeah, too, I'd be like, you know what? By the time I rent a movie and then forget to bring it back, I might as well just buy the thing, you know?
I mean, I owned Leprechaun, the first Leprechaun on VHS. I didn't own any of the other ones that I recall, but I definitely owned the first one on VHS. So
Right. Yeah. I don't think I had those on VHS, but I definitely had the DVDs of the first one.
making me feel old.
Yeah.
So
Well, not that it wasn't around. I mean, clearly I was buying VHSs. I had like so many VHSs one time that like, and all of a sudden DVDs came out, and I was like, had to get rid of them, and it was like they weren't worth anything, and now they're worth something. I'm like, damn, I can't believe I got rid of all those. Should have hung on to them.
yeah, I stopped doing the VHS when Blu-rays started really first coming out. Like when they
Yeah.
had the it was it HD DVD and
Yeah.
Max and the other when they had those,
Right,
they're
right.
all competing. That's when I stopped buying VHS, and then I had to upgrade. So that's when Oh
Yeah,
my
it's kind of
god.
annoying, really, though, because it's crazy how many VHS tapes I haven't had, and then updated to DVDs, and now then it was Blu-ray, now it's 4K, and it's like, you mother. I don't know. I mean, because you know they're going to come out with something else like 8K next, and then really though, I don't. And I said this with the Blu-ray. I mean, can you really get more detail than that in a residential house? Unless you just because you almost have to be on a bigger screen, and like the TVs in most houses not going to support a 8K, or it's not going to matter past the 4K. But I do see a difference in quality between watching a Blu-ray and a 4K. But it might even be. I don't know if it's necessarily better sometimes, because sometimes you see stuff you don't necessarily make. Some things
Let's see.
make things look less interesting because you got that fuzziness of the VHS and the DVDs. Once you go Blu-ray, some of that stuff starts to show around the seams a little bit.
I don't think I want to see a 8K version of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. I will be able to see way too much shit that I don't want to see already.
It would probably still hold up. Well, maybe the makeup, maybe not, but it would probably still be all right, though, really.
I
I
try
think the
not to
4K
watch the
looks pretty good.
Blu-ray version I have. I think the
Yeah,
restoration re-release that they did, I have that one, and I don't
yeah,
watch that one. I go back to I hate to say I have two versions that I go back to. I have a VHS version that was just ported over the DVD, and they look the exact same. And then I have a Blu-ray version, and then I think it's the 4K 2K transfer or it's a
right.
4K. I can't
That's
remember.
that's the Criterion release one, right?
Yes, the Criterion
Yeah,
one. I can't remember which one.
yeah. I got it in 4K. It's weird that it looks pretty good. It's only like a slight uptick in quality from the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is like a 4K. I think it's a 4K transfer to Blu-ray.
Yeah,
It looks good though.
yeah, it looks too clean.
Yeah,
I want my shit.
yeah.
Night of the Dead needs to be grainy. It needs to
Well,
have
that yeah
that
yeah.
realism. It's too clean.
Right, and some of these companies actually don't remove the grain because they like a lot of times Shout Factory won't do it. Some people really don't like seeing the grain. And the other
Mhm.
people like don't want it cleaned up because once you start cleaning it up, you do lose detail. It takes away detail from other parts of the film. So, but really, they say that grain though. is from the generation of the film. Like the original screening of Night of the Living Dead, there's probably no grain in there, very little. And then over time, the film degenerated to where it was grainy. And so so in a way, when they clean it up, it's probably closer to the way it originally looked. But everyone's so used to seeing the grain that sometimes they, in the Halloween or Night of the Living Dead, sometimes they want it to be in there.
Well, Leprechaun 3 is not a film that needs the grain.
I didn't see a lot of grain in it when I was watching it on Blu-ray, but
I'm
they
sure
need.
it doesn't need a 4K or an 8K transfer.
There's probably one coming eventually. They did one for Tremors too, so I don't know.
Well, I think Tremors 2 was the last one that went theatrical, though. After that, I think they all went
Yeah.
straight to DVD.
It's a pretty impressive release, really, the 4K transfer from the Arrow video of that. But I mean, I would think at least they would do a Leprechaun 2 in that way, since that one was shot. I don't know what this one was shot on. It was probably still shot on film anyway. Even if it was released direct to DVD, they probably still shot it on film.
Yeah, yeah. But,
Yeah.
All right. So, any last words about Leprechaun 3 for our St. Patty's Day celebration?
I will say that you don't see a lot of St. Patty's Day stuff in this one, even though it is Leprechaun. It's not like unlike the second one, it doesn't take place on St. Patrick's Day.
Mm. Yeah, you know what? I couldn't tell if it did or either. I was like, okay, so it's just a random day. That
But it is a nice touch having the casino that they work at called was it Lucky Shamrock? That was a nice touch for the film.
it adds ambiance to this film about leprechauns. Well, I had no further words to say about Leprechaun 3. I'm surprised I had as many words as I did for Leprechaun 3 and Leprechaun 2 for that matter. What are you going to rate this? For everyone out there, we usually rate our films from 1 star to 5 stars, depending on 1 star if we think it's bad, or 5 stars if we think it is good. What is your rating for this film?
Now, this is going to be probably higher than this film deserves, but I'm going to give it a 3-star rating
Okay.
just because I think it's a lot of fun. It's really ridiculous, but I think to me it's one of the better of the Leprechaun sequels. It's probably the best Leprechaun sequel. I think this is the first one that really embraces the lunacy of the comedy. The second one plays it a little. It's still kind of comedy, but it plays it a little straighter than this one. This one
Okay.
just goes bonkers, especially like with the other leper guy turned into a leprechaun, and then the whole like I would say from about midway through the film until the end, once the wishes start happening, it's just it's a lot of fun with all that.
Okay. I'm gonna still give this movie a 2. But I will agree with Dave on this. This is the film I believe where they found their tone right, because there's a lot. This movie is a lot of fun from beginning to end, and it does have Caroline Williams in it, so there's a couple extra points there. But I don't really like the way that she dies by just blowing up. I thought that was kind of crazy. But the thing is, the Leprechaun movies are ridiculous. They are ridiculous and they're silly, but this is the first one that truly embraces it. And the ideal that it's kind of wish fulfillment. You get a wish, and of course, it backfires on you because the Leprechaun does something to make it backfire on you. That's not something
Yeah,
in the other films. I think that's
right.
I think this is where it really when you go in to watch a movie that's called Leprechaun with Warwick Davis as the star character, you know exactly what you're in for when you watch this one. The first one did try to be a little serious. It was darker, but not nearly as serious as Leprechaun Origins. That one played it
Right.
straight all the way through.
Well, I think the first one, this one's like the tone, like I say, is really goofy, but the first one works too because the Leprechaun can be scary. I don't know if anybody would actually consider it scary, but the fact that the character's so powerful that a lot of people don't realize that they just think it's goofy, but that he has a lot of powers and it's really hard to kill him. In most of the movies, he has one thing that will kill him
Mhm.
that the main characters have to find out about. But before that happens, like really, it would be he's pretty much unstoppable and he can regenerate typically.
Yeah. Well, my thing with the first movie always is the fact that there were some really dumb things I didn't care for. Him riding on the tricycle, him doing the whole thing about shining the shoes. There's certain things in there I just didn't care for the first film. With this film, when the rules are explained by CD-ROM, I kind of laugh because the animation for the CD-ROM is also hilarious. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
already know it's a ridiculous concept, and they know it's a really the people making this know it's a ridiculous concept, and they don't care. They're making a movie about it anyways. And so I agree with you that they're having a lot of fun when they do this movie. The second movie, they tried a lot to kind of make all make everything work and fit, and everybody gets their comeuppance. So, but they're not flawless movies in the slightest bit. If you've listened to our podcast on Leprechaun 2, and now Leprechaun 3, you know that these movies have some issues. They have some problems, but you're going to get a lot of fun from watching them if you could take the time to actually step into the world of ridiculousness that Warwick Davis has crafted with this character, the Leprechaun, from film to film. Now, these leprechauns aren't all the same leprechauns. We all know that now, but they're all played by the same actor. So it's fun. It's stupid fun. So, with that, I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on this conversation of horror for St. Patty's Day as we talked about Leprechaun 3 in Las Vegas.
Yeah, good times, for sure.
Good times, good times. We could always have good times on the show. For everyone else out there, I hope that you've had fun listening to our conversation on Leprechaun 3. Make sure to check out our conversation on Leprechaun, the first one from last year, and Leprechaun 2 from this year. And make sure to check out any of the other episodes we've had, because we've done a lot of great episodes and a lot of great independent genre films of all different decades, of all different subgenres. With that, make sure to like, subscribe, do that thing you do with the podcast that you love in order to make sure that you are never late to a new episode that comes out every Wednesday at 8 a.m. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, have a great day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.